Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome to the Senstennial. We are doing a 2022 mock draft of the first round, and I can't wait to see some people's reactions because I guarantee that there are going to be people who are like, "What? There's no way that person goes that late or that early or what have you." But maybe you're wrong. So, Matt, how you doing tonight? Before we get started here.
Yeah, I'm really good. It was fun, sitting in the old GM chair for however many teams I did. So,
Yeah.
um I think you have a good point. It's a weird draft. It's a weird draft after doing you know, having been doing research for the last however long as a Senators fan. You're like, all right, where are we going to be picking? Are we picking one or are we picking 14th, sort of thing? Um, and you get to know the names of the guys that you should be aware of, and some guys just came out of nowhere. So it's a weird year. It's not quite like Stutzla's year, and it's not quite like oh man, who even went first last year?
Last year was Owen Power.
Oh yeah. See, like that is a very forgettable draft year.
Well, I think what's interesting about this year is that you have the definite top three, and I think everyone
Yeah.
kind of knows that. Um, sorry, everyone, we're not going to throw you a curveball. There's no like Brad Lambert at number one here. Uh, hey, Ray Bro, Timon, thanks for joining us, guys. Going on, gamer dudes. Yeah, like the top three in this draft are fairly set in stone. I know Ray, you'd probably put like Gleb number one. I'm just giving Ray some hell. But after that, like I think it's pretty wide open. Like there's a general idea, I think, of who could go even from four to about eight. But
Yeah.
then after that, I think from really like 9 to 20, it could go all kinds of ways, and that's what makes this draft really exciting. And now people have said it's a weaker draft, and I would say that it's a weaker draft in the sense that there's not as much star caliber players there,
Yeah.
at least on the surface. But it's not a bad draft. Like into the second round, I think teams are going to get players who will fit into the middle of the lineup or somewhere on the defensive core, and there's going to be some good players to take there.
Yeah, I would
But
agree.
if you want to get this bad boy underway, we can do it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of speculation as to what's going to be happening with the first overall pick. So, without further ado, Montreal is taking Shane Wright at first overall.
Ooh, Shane Wright. All right, let's go. Number one, we're gonna get Shane Wright in here.
Yeah, he's the choice that people are overthinking. Um, he's got
Actually,
arguably the most well-rounded game of an NHL draft prospect. His output made people question his legitimacy as a first overall pick, but he still did put up a 94-point season with 32 goals and 62 assists in 63 games. As somebody he was seriously affected by the pandemic. He basically didn't play for 2 years essentially, and when he came back, he does this. He's a great playmaker, a really good two-way player, and I think he's got a solid 2C type floor.
I
And
agree.
then I think he has the potential to be the best player on the Habs, and that the Habs have had for a very long time. So, yeah, Shane Wright at one.
All right. Well, I mean, for me, I don't think it'll be too much of a surprise here. And I have to preface this. I really, really like Logan Cooley. And the only reason that this player is going ahead of Logan Cooley is because I think New Jersey is set down the middle with Hishe and Hughes. And I really, as much as I really like Cooley, I think he is a C at the next level. And I don't think that New Jersey would benefit, I think, from another center. I really could see them going after this player at number two, Uri Slavkovsky. And I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. He's a big bodied guy, and you know how NHL GMs love big. But to me, you need to have some good wingers now to go around Hichet and to go around Hughes. They have guys like Holtz that are coming up. I really think he'll be a nice piece for them. Jesper Bratt had a good season this year.
He
To
had
me,
an
though,
excellent season. I
oh
didn't
yeah,
realize how good a season he had.
to me, Pavel Zacha has really underperformed, and I don't think that's really a surprise to anybody or news to anybody. So I think for the Devils, taking Slavkovsky, who could maybe play in the NHL this year, but I'd say at least maybe another year of seasoning before he makes that jump, that'll
Yeah.
be huge for them, and I would love to see him on a line with Hughes or Hische. I think more so Hughes, in my opinion, but yeah, and I think there's a lot of talk about his productivity in Liga this year, but I
Yeah.
think he really came into his own after he went to the Olympics. He had that huge performance, 7 goals in 7 games. That really set the stage. He had a better playoffs, and I don't think any team will regret taking Slavkovsky, and that's why at number 2, our good old, or what I type this in? Did I spell that wrong? Oh no, I did. Oh my God. There we go. We're good. I
I'm
think
honestly surprised you don't just have the names there so you can copy and paste them.
no, I'm doing this raw, man.
That Oh
Sorry.
no.
I didn't mean it like that, but it did come out that
Oh,
way. So
that's
you got
okay.
your guy Slavkovsky at number 2 to the Devils, who you take
That's
in for number 3.
good pick. I think I like that pick there, especially him playing with Jack Hughes. That's unreal. And one of the things is Pavel Zacha's their fourth line center. Dawson Mercer was their third line center. They're like
Yeah.
set.
But
Um,
Pavel Zacha near the end of the season was lining up on their first line. I was looking up their line combo.
yeah,
So
yeah. I remember Hughes got hurt again or something like that, and I was like, well, there goes my season in
yeah.
fantasy. At number 3, this is where the draft starts getting interesting. We have the Arizona Coyotes taking Logan Cooley. It's not interesting at all.
I was gonna say,
Baited.
surprise, surprise. Yeah.
This guy had a really good season. He had 75 points in 51 games, had an excellent under 18s with 10 points. Watching him, you can just see that his game is going to translate to the NHL. He's a great two-way center who is an excellent skater. He's got great hands. Like I remember seeing some of his highlights and hoping, like, God forbid, we get Ottawa, he gets on Ottawa, but there's not a chance that's happening. He's going to Arizona, and I think he becomes what Arizona needed Barrett Hayton to become. Uh, he was that really important 5th overall pick a couple years ago. He still hasn't made the NHL, which sucks. I think he's still got a future, but Logan Cooley, to me, has the makings of a 2C in the NHL.
Well, to me, I think he even has that 1C upside.
Yeah.
Like, I personally think that the Arizona Coyotes could start thinking about building around Cooley because obviously they do have Clayton Keller, really good
Yep.
player. We know Chychrun's been on the trade block, so who knows what his longevity in Arizona will be. But they have 3 first-round picks this year and 5 second-round picks, so they could really overhaul their team, and this draft is going to be huge for them. So, yeah, number 3, I'll throw in Logan Cooley here.
It's a good pick.
Logan
I
Cooley,
stand by it.
Ray Tovar, Tinling, number 1. Oh my God! If we did that for a draft, I'm pretty sure people would call it in.
I genuinely don't know who that is.
I don't know. I know Reed Schaefer, but I think he's expected to go in like the 3rd round. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
At number 4, we've got the Seattle Kraken, and Seattle last year they took Matty Beniers 2nd overall. And personally, I was a huge Matty Beniers fan, and if he had been taken 1st overall, I would have been, well, not happy as a Sens fan because obviously I don't want him to be in division, but I really could have seen him going 1st overall. So I think that the Kraken are able to now, like, they're able to build their forward core out starting with Beniers. And for this pick, I think it'll really help them start building out from the blue line. So I'm going with Simon Nemec at number 4 for the Seattle Kraken. So Nemec, I think he's already a more sought after prospect because he's a right-handed defenseman, but he brings speed, creativity, hockey IQ, great passing, like really everything you could want in an offensive defenseman. And Seattle could really benefit from a player like that. To me, they have a lot of guys who are, I don't want to say like slower, more lumbering, but they have a lot of guys who I think really play more of a defensive style game, even if maybe some of them aren't so good at that style of game. And I think that they could use a guy who could up the tempo from their blue line. And to me, Simo Nemec really is that guy. He's got a ton of high end skill, and I feel like if he reaches his ceiling, he'll be a dominant offensive threat for years on Seattle's blue line. So I'm going with Simo Nemec at number 4.
That's a pick. I know a lot of people go back and forth with Nemec or Juracek and who they like more. And Nemec had an unbelievable playoffs that definitely made people take notice of that. So I like the pick. At 5, the Philadelphia Flyers are taking Cutter Gauthier.
Oh, that hurts my heart as a big Cutter Gauthier fan.
Yeah, he's an interesting prospect. I think his name he's on the rise simply because of his name. It's his name is Cutter. I can't believe it. He has the Philly feeling for me. He seems like he's a Torts and Fletcher type player. He plays a big, strong game that makes him a commodity for every team. I would be surprised if every team didn't want a guy like this. He put up 65 points last season and had an excellent U18s along with Cooley. He's got a great shot the teams will covet, and I think Philly could use an impact forward more than a defenseman with Giroux becoming a senator over the offseason.
I was like, yep, wait a second.
Wait, hold on a goddamn second.
There's a chance. But yeah, no, I agree. Cutter Gauthier, to me, like I always explain him to people as being like a Swiss Army knife player. I really think that he could fit in anywhere in a lineup, any role that you give him, he could do it. And yeah, he's got one hell of a shot. He's my personal favorite of this draft. Not the guy I would take first overall, obviously, but he is my personal favorite player from this draft to watch. And I don't care who judges me for that. I would be sad to see him go at number 5 because I would love for the Sens to get him at 7. But
yeah, I just think his stock is rising so much that people really want him.
Yeah. And from what it sounds like, he had some really good draft interviews, and I think that always helps a prospect's case.
Yep.
But I'll move on to number 6. So at number 6, I know Sens fans are potentially hoping that this player falls to number 7. But number 6, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets taking David Juracek. So to me, I know some fans have a lot of people have the Columbus Blue Jackets taking a forward. I've seen like Kemmel, Savoy. I personally think they'll go for a defenseman. At least that's why I chose one in the mock draft. And for me, it makes sense. They got rid of Seth Jones. When you look at their blue line, they have Werenski, but they don't have a lot after that. So to me, bringing in Juracek, he's a big defenseman, right shot, which of course GMs always covet. He walks the blue line with poise, smart decision maker. He has a booming slap shot. I don't know about Chara level, but I would not want to stand in front of that thing. And yeah, when I look at Columbus's blue line, I could just really see Juracek fitting in well there for them. And I think it'll help them give them another power play quarterback behind Werenski on that second unit, or maybe they go with both of them on the top unit in the future. I think that's a good look for them. And he could play considerable minutes 5-on-5, and he could even play on the PK too. Although I do think his knee injury set him back, but I think with the right development and conditioning that he could come back to full form. So I'm going with David Juracek going in for the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, if he's sitting there at 7, I would be remiss if Ottawa didn't take him. He seems to me as the most complete defenseman in the draft. But as you said, the injury really set him back. But I hope he comes back and kills it. So the pick that everybody's been waiting for.
Go
You know,
Sens, baby.
we are the Senstennial, and I'm sure there's a reason that people are tuning in. So at number 7, the Ottawa Senators are picking Matthew Savoy.
Ooh,
Yes,
spicy.
this would stray from the norm of Ottawa Senators picks for sure. However, you now have a new ownership group in the sense that it's not uh, Eugene. Your chief of scouting has been promoted to the assistant general manager, and the Senators need a heck of an offseason. So why not go after the kid who applied for exceptional status because he was that good? In the conversation to be a top 3 for a lot of the season, yet his only drawback is he's 5'9". If the Senators are legitimately interested in going after Alex DeBrincat, seeing that what he's capable of, why not go after a player who profiles so similarly offensively? I think Savoy could be the steal of the draft if you're getting him at 7 and he fits everything into the game that he has. If it translates, that's a heck of a player to have.
Yeah, definitely. And to me, his draft stock has actually kind of declined, and that's really interesting because I remember the earlier stages of the season, or I guess middle of the season for the Sens. I was hoping that they would finish like fifth last to have a shot at Savoy. So
Yeah,
to have him potentially be able to be there at 7 now would be huge for the Sens. And
yep.
like Raybro says in chat, like Matt Savoy and Tim Stützle together, that would be a lot of fun to watch. Obviously, not DJ Smith's ideal combo. You know, he likes to have some size there, but yeah, no, I definitely think you throw Matt Savoy in a line with Tim Stützle and you can watch the magic unfold. They would be a lot of fun together for sure.
Savoy's just so dynamic, and it makes he had 100 points this season in 70 games. That's really good. So I like him a lot, and I know I've seen, you know, the Sens have been sort of connected to the Winnipeg Ice, and I'm hoping it's for Savoy.
We'll get to Connor Geeky later. Okay, well, this I think is going to be the first bold move of the draft, and I'm not trying to just do this to create some shock value, but I do have to say, to me, I think Steve Yzerman hasn't been afraid to make bold moves in the past. It worked out when they chose Moritz Seider in 2019. When they picked him, I think a lot of people are like, wait, what? They expected him to go in the late teens, maybe early 20s, but Seider got picked. I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe sixth overall. Yeah. And so, anyway, now it looks brilliant. And so I'm
Yeah.
expecting them to kind of make another bold pick like that. And so I'm going at number 8, Brad Lambert. I'm taking him pretty high. And to me, I think he gets too much flack from the general prospect, I guess, draft watcher community out there on Twitter. I think there are a lot of aspects to his game that are really good. His speed, his stick handling, his wrist shot release, his playmaking abilities. There's a lot to like about Brad Lambert's game. And I understand he hasn't put up the points that people want to see out of him. I totally get it. But to me, Lambert's line mates also haven't been too great. And I know he played on a team with Kemmel, but he was not playing with Kemmel. And I know we can talk about Kemmel when we get to that. But for Brad Lambert, I think there are a lot of aspects to his game that just really didn't show up on the scoreboard. Time and saying Chad Lambert. And yeah, so I think Detroit makes that pick. To me, Detroit needs more help up the middle. And I could see him being a nice 1-2 with Dylan Larkin if Dylan Larkin stays on Detroit for the next few years, which I expect him to, but you never know. So, yeah, so I'm going to throw Brad Lambert into the 8 spot for the Detroit Red Wings.
Lambert is one of the guys that I would really like for the Sens to draft. I think he's got the it factor. He just screams to me like a guy who had a crap season on a crap team, and when he moves, he's going to go to Seattle. He's going to be playing for the WHL team, and he's going to dominate. I'll tell you right now.
You think he's going to come over to North America?
Yeah, he as far as I know, he said he was planning on it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, Lambert Center and Raymond would be nuts. And yeah, Kemmel's not as good as a line driver as Lambert. That's 100% true. He has a nice shot. I mean, you know what? We'll get to Kemmel. I'll stop there. Yes, I agree. Lambert would be a good line driver. He'd look sweet with Raymond. I like it. I'll let Matt take it away for pick number 9.
With the 9th overall pick to the Buffalo Sabres, they select Marco Kasper. He's been linked to the Sens a lot recently, and for good reason. His game is impressive. He's a big center, and Buffalo kind of lacks that in their pipeline right now. He checks all of the boxes that centers need to produce in the NHL. His production doesn't really jump off the page at you, but considering he's playing in the SHL as a 17-year-old and now 18-year-old, that's extremely impressive. That's not easy. He's got a big shot, good defensive game, and skates really well. He's strong on the puck, good in tight, and that's what you want your centerman to be. I think he could be one of the best players in this draft.
Ooh, now that is an interesting take. I haven't heard that one yet. So, honestly, I seriously haven't watched a ton of Marco Kasper, so that's on me. Um, I've heard a lot of positives about him. I know he's been jumping up the draft board lately. I guess we'll see if Buffalo takes that pick there with Marco Kasper. For me, number 10, we got the Anaheim Ducks. And we know how Anaheim likes their flair. We've seen it with Trevor Zegras, his little lacrosse goals. And so for me, they add even more flair to their forward core and draft Frank Nazar. So to me, Nazar isn't a big forward, but he's just a ton of fun to watch. He's actually one of the most fun players in this draft to watch, if you ask me. You watch him in the offensive zone, you watch his transitioning. He's just so nifty and nimble, agile. I would be fine if the Sens took Nazar at 7. Like, that's how much I like Nazar. I think he is criminally underrated on some draft boards that I've seen him on. I don't get it. And I can only think that maybe it's because he's under 6 feet, and that's really why he gets the hate that he does. Or maybe not hate, but the lack of respect he gets, I think, on draft boards. But yeah, he's a ton of fun to watch. He's got great skating, stick handling, playmaking ability. If him and Zegras ended up on the same line down the road, God, they would be so much fun to watch. Like, that skill together would just be a ton of fun. And I think that Anaheim Ducks power play would be just like chef's
It would
kiss,
be nasty.
guys. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's who I'm throwing in for the Ducks at number 10.
I like it. Well, if we're going on we're still going on the forward train, and the San Jose Sharks
Wait,
are
wait.
proud to
Wait, before you get to San Jose's pick,
Okay.
Raybro just throws up, does Nazar play C at the next level and does his effort improve? To me, that's going to be more like a coaching development thing. We'll really see. I think, obviously, okay, for example, last year for Sillinger, I actually really didn't like him going into the draft. To me, when I watched Sillinger play and the tape that I watched, he seemed to float around in the defensive end and wasn't really active in the defensive zone. And I was like, man, I don't like this. This doesn't look good. And bam, pops in the NHL. Immediately, you see a different player. Like, he had that effort, intensity. And I think that the drive of the NHL really can do that for some players. And I think maybe Frank Nazar, he's one of those guys. We'll see. I don't personally think he'll play C at the next level. I think he's more suited to the wing, but if he ends up at C, then let's see how it goes. But yeah, Matt, I'll let you take it away with San Jose.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair, and unfortunately, we had a bit of a player like that with Logan Brown, who just the intensity was never there, and here we are. With the 11th pick, San Jose is proud to select Jonathan Lekkerimäki. This guy has a niche, and it's scoring. He had a huge U18s with 15 points and dominated the J20 level in Sweden with 20 goals. Adding a player like this to their prospect pool, along with fellow Swede Will Eklund, makes the Sharks very happy. Going back to the goal scoring, though, he's one of, if not the best goal scorer in the draft. He's extremely creative player, which makes their offense deadly. His D isn't really anything to write home about, but you don't draft him for that. You draft him for the pure offense that you can't teach. Whereas the D thing, I think you can sort of mold that into an improved player. But there's a reason people are sort of looking at him in the top 10 because of just his sheer goal scoring ability. It does kind of remind me of Holtz a couple of years ago and his ability to score goals too. I think he's going to be a very interesting player to keep your eye on because he could go as high as 6 or, even lower. Who knows? He is muted, everybody. So that's why.
Oh, no. I was going to say, I think Lekkerimäki, putting him alongside a guy like Tomas Hertl, that would be a sweet 1-2 line. I mean, even Logan Couture has some nice skill, but I think Lekkerimäki with Tomas Hertl would be sweet to watch. And Ray here again says, Eklund feeding Lekkerimäki is a scary sight to see. Complimentary game will do great with Eklund. Yeah, I mean, Lekkerimäki has a great shot. That's been the biggest part of his game. I know some people have been wanting to see more about his playmaking, his passing, seeing that part of his game. And I believe he showed it off a little more at the U18s. But yeah, definitely he seems like a player who would be great for the Sharks in that spot. And yeah. So, what are we at now? Number 12. All right. So Columbus, their second pick in the top 12. Whew. That's gonna be nice. That Chicago trade really worked out for them, eh?
That Chicago trade is terrible. Like, I know Seth Jones put up like 50 points last year, which is, he was good, but that's a trade that's just looking awful. Like, even from the outset, then you have the signing, and then it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah, it is. It's not a pretty sight. But anyway, so Columbus, they get the 12th pick of the draft. And to me, this is not just because it's the Finnish connection, but I'm going with Joakim Kemmel at 12th overall. So if he's still available, because obviously real world ain't our mock draft. If Joakim Kemmel is there, I think Columbus takes him at 12. And I think, at number 6, they get David Yurchek. They're happy with that. They really get to help build that back end. And then if Kemmel's there at 12, I think that Columbus is ecstatic because they get now a goal scoring winger who I think is quite raw, and I think there's some tools that need to be refined. Obviously, the biggest criticism are his shot selection, which I totally get. He takes a lot of really random shots that aren't very effective. There's times in transition where I don't like the plays that he makes to try and get into the offensive end. So there's definitely some work to be done around there. But he's a very hard-nosed player. He's very fierce on the puck. If you talk about compete level that a lot of guys, a lot of, NHL draft analysts talk about, he's got that. He's a hard-nosed player. So yeah, for me, I think he could be one of the best goal scorers out of this draft if he improves his shot selection because the shot release is there. He has a hell of a shot, but if he can improve that shot selection, that's what'll be big for him going forward. And to me, if Line stays on that roster, having two Finnish wingers who both are like I know Line has
Who
had
finish?
downs, Finnish Finnish guys who can finish. But if both those guys are on the roster in a few years from now, like I think it'd be really fun to have a 1-2 winger combo of Line and Kemmel. So that's who I'm
Yeah,
going.
and then they have Kent Johnson in there, who's just like a human highlight reel. Like Columbus should be super excited for what they got coming. At 13, the Islanders are who I think very well could take Brad Lambert. I don't know. Their
Could
head coach
option not to.
is his uncle too. So, but with that said, Noah Ostland,
Ooh.
considered to be one of the best positional player or possession players of the draft. Sorry, he's a very good player with and without the puck. The Islanders have an interesting prospect pool, and Ostland would add like a dynamic play style to that future roster. He does play center, and he is a really good face-off guy, strong two-way ability. He can move off C and play wing as well, but I just with Brock Nelson not getting any younger, a 1-2 of Matt Barzal and Noah Ostland doesn't sound like a bad thing.
No, I like it. I mean, I wanted the Sens to offer Sheet Barzell, but I didn't get that.
You wanted Dougie Hamilton too, but
I know. I'm
I've
all
been, I've been on the Dylan Strom train for years and
that's
still never
fair.
happened.
Yeah, even when it sounds like that's something the Sens might, snag, it's like,
Yeah, and then just get Dylan Gambrell. Like, come on, man.
Derek Stepan, am I right?
Oh,
Okay, we'll move this bad boy along. At 14th overall to the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg fans, if any of you are watching, don't hate me, okay? I'll explain it. I think Winnipeg drafts local and takes Connor Geeky at 14th overall.
mm,
So Connor Geeky is a guy kind of like Brad Lambert who has highly mixed reviews. Some people love his game, and they can see past his lackluster skating. Others think that he's an instant bust, and they don't want anything to do with Connor Geeky. So to me, like I just said, I think he needs to improve his foot speed in order to be ready for the next level. But I also think his playmaking and hockey IQ are some of his best assets. And if you're thinking that he's like his older brother, he's not. I personally think he'll be like I don't know how many times better than his brother, but he will be the better player of the two. So I think he could also use his body a little bit more, especially like he's in junior and he doesn't use his body enough, in my opinion. And that's where usually players dominate if they're physically bigger than their fellow peers, is because they have that body size and other guys haven't grown into their frames yet, but he hasn't. So I'd like to see him kind of develop that more because I think that that could be a good trait to his game as well. So I think the skating that also just will come with development. Get some skating trainers, help him with that, work on that, and yeah. So while I get the hesitation from some prospect enthusiasts about Connor Geeky, I think it's a tad overblown, and I think down the road he could be a good middle six center for the Winnipeg Jets. So that's who I'm going with at number 14.
yeah. I think Geeky is one of those players who's been all over the place in draft rankings. I think if he's able to figure out his skating issues, he'll definitely be like a top 9 forward in the NHL. And I think he just needs to use his size more to be more dominant because he has the tools similar to Logan Brown actually. But at 15, we have another defenseman off the board with Kevin Korchinski. He is a big left-handed defenseman that all Vancouver has to do is just take the ferry down to Seattle to see. He's got 65 points in the WHL as a defenseman while still being considered an excellent defensive-minded D-man. Uh, that just makes him so much more appealing to teams simply because I remember a couple years ago with Jeremy Poirier putting up insane point totals, but just there was nothing to his game defensively. Whereas Korchinski is extremely well rounded and has skyrocketed the draft rankings because of his strong play. So Vancouver would be very stoked with this one, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Korchinski would be a good pick for them. For me, I'm also going with a defenseman, and I'm going with left-handed defenseman Pavel Mintyukov. And I know Buffalo does have Owen Power. They do have Rasmus Dahlin. I totally get that. But I think that they could use another piece on the back end. And I think if you have three guys on the left side who can all play a variety of roles, minutes in whatever situations, Dahlin and Power are your obvious power play guys. I think Mintukov could be that as well in the future. But I just think it gives them another weapon on the blue line. And because they don't have that earlier pick to take Jiricek or Nemec, I think that Mintukov is a nice pick for them. And I think I was going to pick Korchinski for them before you took Korchinski. But yeah, I think Buffalo would be happy with that. So that is my pick.
All right. Now, 17th overall to the Nashville Predators is personally one of my favorite players of the draft, Isaac Howard. Um, Standing at 5'10, Howard is teetering that line for NHL scouts of being too small, despite having a more impressive season statistically than U.S. national team development program counterparts, Cooley and Gauthier. He sits in the lower half of the draft. His game sort of reminds me of Marco Rossi, shorter but extremely stocky, strong on his feet, and thinks the game at like a very impressive level. He has the offensive upside of a first line winger in the NHL. And frankly, if I think if he's 6'2", this guy's like a top 5 pick, probably going first overall with the season he had.
Yeah.
He's so gifted offensively and just as a player in general that he sort of made me want him take him at 7.
Yeah, honestly, Isaac Howard, I liked watching what I saw from him. He's another guy like the US National Team Development Program has so many guys this year who you could say could go anywhere from, first, I know there's arguments for Cooley going number 1 to like really like anywhere, even up to 32. I've seen Isaac Howard fall into the second round in some lists, and I was like, holy crap, really? And I think Nashville, if they're getting Isaac Howard at 17, you can't complain about that. I love
Yeah.
that for them. I think that Nashville also has a knack for getting guys and just making something out of them. And Isaac Howard, I don't even actually think needs that much work. I think you let him simmer and you kind of just let him do his thing, and he'll be ready, I think, in a couple of years to come into the NHL and be a nice, potentially like third line player to start, kind of like Alex Formenton, where you throw him into the lineup. He's got the speed. Alex Formenton, I don't think has nice, puck handle or like just offensive scoring skills as Isaac Howard, but kind of where you fit him into that role, he can bounce up into your second line, and I think that's where he'll be where if he achieves the ceiling. But and I actually had Isaac Howard, I think, going soon after before you told me that you were taking him. So I was like, shit.
He's one of those players that when I watched the U18s for the US, there's so many players to watch. Logan Cooley, Frank Nazar, Cutter Gauthier, Rutger McGroarty, and obviously Isaac Howard. He was one of the guys where I was like, wait, is that Logan Cooley? And then it was Isaac Howard, and he's just that good. As I said, I would have no problem if Ottawa picked Isaac Howard at 7. I would be okay with it.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about this draft. Like there are a bunch of guys who I'm like, yeah, if the Sens picked that player at 7, I wouldn't mind. Like literally, I'm looking at our list right now. So we have Savoy, Lambert, Casper, Nazar, Lekaramaki, Kemmel. I would take any of those guys at 7. I would be like, okay, cool, let's roll with it. So yeah, there's just a lot of guys. Isaac Howard actually falls in that range for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, I agree with you. There's a lot of good players that you could take between 7 and 20 that I would have no issue with.
Yeah.
For 18, I didn't write too much for this pick. To me, Dallas, they're losing Klingberg to free agency. He's not coming back. So to me, I'm going back to a defenseman, And I think that with Mintyukov going off the board, Dallas is going to see that and they're going to be like, and they'll take Denton Mateychuk. And I think that just adds another offensive defenseman, or at least defenseman with offensive upside to their prospect pool. It'd be a smart move for them. He could jump in a few years. I know they have Harley back there. They obviously have Miro Heiskanen, who is excellent, but I think a lot of teams are kind of moving to that model of like, let's try and build out the defense and then go with the forwards because it's so much harder to find those cornerstone NHL defensemen who can really keep you in the fight every game. And yeah, so I think that's Dallas's guy, Mateychuk.
Yeah, I honestly don't really know much about him, so I'll respect your pick. At 19, the newly acquired first round pick for Minnesota, I have them taking Danila Yurov, and he's the first like Russian being taken off the board. I know obviously Minchukov was taken, but I he's a very interesting prospect. His season was kind of pathetic, to be honest with you. How he was used in the KHL was embarrassing, quite honestly. With that said, though, he was barely given an opportunity to step on the ice. He showed up in other places where it mattered, in the MHL and then internationally. He's got a lot of really good skills as a player. And I think Minnesota, having Kaprizov there, they'll sort of be okay with the risk and take one of the best players in the draft.
Yeah, and even Raybro, like, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was
No, that's exactly it. Like he had,
he
yeah,
really didn't get a lot of opportunity with his team, and it was really weird to see that from a prospect who you'd expect to be going higher up in the draft. I don't know if it was confirmed. There were some issues, I think, characteristics wise, in terms of his personality. I heard that he was sending unsolicited photos to women. So
oof.
that yeah, so that may hurt his draft stock. And if I feel like it hasn't been over, or like, what do you call
I
that? Like,
haven't heard about that, so
yeah,
that's
it
wild.
hasn't been like everywhere. Kind of like last year with Logan Mailloux, like that was really heavy in the media, and I think it was only exacerbated by Montreal taking him and them being such a huge hockey market.
Yeah.
But with Danilo Yurov going to Minnesota, maybe it's more low key there. I know Minnesota's a huge hockey market, but I think there's less media spotlight on them than in a Canadian market. So
Yeah.
I think I'm taking another bold take here at number
Ooh, I
20 to the
love your bold
Capitals.
takes.
I think some people are going to be like, I wouldn't take this guy that high, but I like what I see. Oh, Ray Bro, it might be a hacker. Oh, okay, that would make sense too, and that's why I said it's unconfirmed. But anyway, hopefully it's not him,
Also, shout outs to Ray Bro being,
a bro, being
yeah,
Ray, being
just
a bro.
like top chatting us. I love it.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Ray. Yeah, so Washington. So I actually originally had the Capitals taking a defenseman when I looked at their defensive core, but with how this draft has shaken out, all the defensemen who I thought may end up going to the Capitals didn't. They were taken. So for me, I was like, okay, what's the other position that I think there's a player available who could be a good fit for them, and also it's just like a good skill player that you could take at this spot, and I think it would be okay. And to
Yeah.
me, I have the Washington Capitals taking Luca Del Bel Belluz, one of the best names in the draft.
That is a mouthful.
Yeah, it's just okay. So when I look at the Caps, when down the middle, okay, they have Backstrom. I believe he's 34. They have Lars Eller, who's 33. Kuznetsov, who I thought was like 26, 27. No, he is 30 years old now,
Oh,
Kuznetsov.
wow.
Yeah. So to me, I was like, okay, their center core is aging, and I would really like to see them add another center because I think that when Luca Del Bel Belluz is ready in a few years, that that's a guy who Washington can put in their lineup. And if Backstrom's retired by then, or maybe hypothetically, if Backstrom decides to leave to another team, which I doubt, I think he'll retire Cap, then I think it would be nice to have a nice, good center prospect coming through your system. And yeah, Luca Del Bel Blues is that guy to me. Again, he might be a little high here for some people, but I think he's a solid pick. He can really make magic happen in the offensive zone. His shooting and passing are both great for a player who's only playing in his second OHL season, by the way. I think he needs to work on his skating a bit, but I think that the Caps are a great place for him to work on his shortcomings. So I'm putting Luca Del Bel Blues, number 20 for the Caps.
I like it. As I said, don't know much about him either, but he's got a heck of a name. At 21, Pittsburgh gets a really, really cool player in Liam Ogren. This guy is a player who absolutely just dominated where he played. In 30 games, he put up 58 points, and 33 of which were goals. The 6-1 winger played with Lekaramaki and Oslin, and they were terror for other teams. The biggest drawback of his game is his skating, but this is the type of player where if you work on that, he has the capability of being a star. He would immediately become a top prospect for Pittsburgh, who generally opens up the cupboards when it comes to trying to make the playoffs and have a deep run. But this is a guy who he's already a big kid, and if he continues to put muscle on and keep doing what he's doing, my God, I see a lot of goals in his future.
All right, all right. So Liam Ogren in there at number 21. At number 22, we're going back to Anaheim. And I originally had Anaheim taking Isaac Howard because I was like, if Anaheim had Isaac Howard, Frank Nazar, and Trevor Zegras on the same team, like that would just be oodles of fun. But
The U.S. national team development program is just like, can we take your pictures and then just like post them everywhere?
but so the funny thing is, I was like so excited in Matt and I were talking about our picks back and forth yesterday, not knowing who each of us had picked for our respective choices. So I had put Isaac Howard for the Anaheim Ducks, and he's like, Matt, I took him like several picks ago. I was like, oh, I was just so excited. So anyway, Anaheim, I had to search for another player who I thought could be an interesting pick for Anaheim, but fit into what they kind of have going on there. So this again might be a bit of another reach pick here at number 22, but I'm going with right winger Jagger Furcus. So
Ooh.
like Nazar, Furcus isn't the biggest player out there, but what he lacks in size, he makes up for in his goal scoring abilities and his creativity. Anaheim might like that Furcus netted a lacrosse goal in the WHL playoffs this year, so him and Zekers could take up lacrosse in the offseason or maybe compete to see who could have the most lacrosse goals in the NHL next year. So I'm having Furcus there at number 22 for the Anaheim Ducks.
I like his name too.
Great
It's a
name.
good name.
This draft is the draft of names.
Yes. And speaking of a name, I am going to say one now. To St. Louis for the 23rd pick, I have Ivan Miroshnichenko. Now, Miroshnichenko was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, but he was recently cleared to start training again, which I think it's great. I know he's putting in the work to come back and obviously stay healthy. And from what I understand, he's going to be at the draft. So with that said, he was considered top 5 talent in this draft, and for good reason. He does everything extremely well. He's a great skater. He has good playmaking ability, and he has a good shot to boot. St. Louis is at a stage where they could wait for a player like him. And if he hits his potential, that's like, it's another steal type deal for St. Louis.
Steel type deal. I love it.
Yeah.
Ray saying Luca Del Bel believes that Washington is bold. Love it. Awesome, Ray, bro. I was gonna say if Mira goes the last. No, we couldn't let that happen. Don't worry, Brent. Thanks for tuning in. Honestly, probably is a top 15 talent, not for real life. So, yeah, definitely. Like Miroshnichenko had that skill level, and he was being talked about as a potential top 10 pick for a while until that diagnosis came out. So I think the Blues get a steal at that spot in the draft. So 24, we have the Minnesota Wild again. So Matt had them taking a right winger, which I guess kind of might screw up what I'm going with here, but I'm going anyway because I'm passionate
BPA.
about well, I don't know if it's BPA to some people, but I am going with the Minnesota native committed to the University of Minnesota next season, Jimmy Snuggerud. Let's go. So Jimmy Snuggerud, another guy with a great name. He's got nice stick handling. He's got a good wrist shot. I find that he likes to disrupt opposing teams on the forecheck. He loves getting nitty and gritty in there, in the other team's defensive end, and I love watching him play. I think he projects out as kind of a two-way scoring winger. I think he'll slot in nicely in Minnesota's middle six down the road. To me, Minnesota loves having those fierce players that have a defensive aspect to their game, but are also able to contribute offensively. And I think we saw that this past season. And yeah, so I really like that pick for them. And like I said, homegrown talent. And I think, yes, Jimmy Snuggerud is the pick for the Wild.
He's got a hell of a name. And I know Minnesota does love their Minnesota guys. At 25, I have the Toronto Maple Leafs taking Lane Hutson.
Okay.
this this just it seems like a very much Leafs draft choice. He's one of the most polarizing players in the draft, just because of his size. But he also put up 63 points in 60 games as a defenseman. His best asset is his skating, and then you couple that with his puck handling ability, you have a hell of a defenseman. As I said, the only caveat is he's 5'8". He really reminds me of the Topi Niemela pick they had a few years ago. And I think this is definitely just a boom or bust pick for the Leafs. And I know Kyle Dubas isn't really afraid of those, and I appreciate that because I like Dubas. He is a Sen sicko, and you simply love to see it. But yeah, Hudson is crazy good. He's crazy talented, and he's crazy tiny.
And Kyle Dubas liked Alfie getting into the Hockey Hall of Fame on Twitter, so
You bet he did.
definitely a Sens fan at heart. We love to see
Yeah.
it. At 26, so to me, this was kind of a fun one. I actually had Miroshnichenko going to the Habs here because I was like, man, if he's not picked at this point, the Habs have two first rounders. Why not take a swing at this guy? But, with you taking him a few spots earlier, I said, what other player could I see the Habs taking that I think would be an off the board pick? Ray, you're going to love this one. I'm sure some of you out there will love this. If the Montreal Canadiens don't trade up from 26, I see them taking Gleb Trikazov. So Gleb is one of those guys who, again, I don't think gets enough love in the public sphere. Besides his great name, Gleb had a great season in the MHL, which is the Russian Junior League. He had 45 points in 35 games and an additional 18 points in 13 playoff games. When he moved up against tougher competition, he did struggle a bit. He only had 2 points in 11 games, but I think that's totally fine. He's a guy who's I personally just really like, and from a Sens fan perspective, if the Ottawa Senators took him in the second round, I would be more than thrilled with that. I think he's a responsible forward, great hockey IQ, nice shot to boot. Can't go wrong with that. Montreal's always had a good connection with Russian talents, so I think taking a guy like Gleb's totally within the realm of possibility for them. It may take him a bit more time to get to the NHL, but I really like this pick for the Habs, so that's where I'm going with number 26. Gleb.
Gleb. Well, at 27, the Arizona Coyotes, who didn't have a first round pick last year,
Or
because they
or
they just kept
I think they had
cheating.
yeah.
Yeah, they got boned. They select Rutger McGroarty.
Ooh, okay.
Heck of a name once
I
again.
love that pick though.
How many good names are there in the U.S. national team development program?
In this
Like,
draft in general, there's just a lot of good
I
names.
know. He's been described as a physical specimen. Some would say he's a bit of a man child in terms of having the body of a man, but still being 17 years old. He's really hard to knock off the puck, and that's a really good way of getting to the NHL. He is another product of the U.S. national team development program and putting up big numbers with 69 points.
Nice.
Thanks. And that's in 54 games. He has the stat sheet to back up being a first round pick. He seems like one of the safest bets to make the NHL in this draft. He takes really good shots when he gets into the positions that he prefers to be in, and he has the skills that you need. And so far, I'd say Arizona's having a heck of a draft.
Yeah, no, I like that pick for them too. And I could be totally wrong. I think I had them taking McGroarty at 32 actually. And then you're like,
Nice.
oh no, I took him earlier. And then I was like, oh, to Arizona. Perfect. It worked out. We both had him going to Arizona, just you a bit earlier than I did. No, I like that pick for them too. And we both said it yesterday. Like he just has like an Arizona Coyotes kind of vibe to his
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
So
he does.
at 28 for Buffalo, Buffalo back on the board for a third time in this draft. So they've got their center, they've got their defenseman. I'm going with a guy who's a center and a winger. Close,
Yeah, I was like, you're not taking a goalie.
maybe. No, I'm just kidding. Buffalo wouldn't do that to themselves, I think. Craig Anderson locked in long term. No, but anyway, hope I'm saying this right. I have the Buffalo Sabres at 28 taking Philip Misar. He might have fallen a lot more than people expect our mock draft, and I just think sometimes that's how things shake up. When Matt and I were doing our practice picks yesterday, I was like, oh man, like neither of us have taken him yet. And so I think that it's just kind of a no-brainer to take Misar at 28. Great skater, great puck transitioner and protector, versatile forward. He can play center or wing. He had a good season in Slovakia and put up a great showing for Slovakia at the U18s. So I think if Buffalo sees Mizar on the board at 28, they are thrilled. So that's who I'm
Yeah,
putting at the 28 spot.
yeah. No, I like it. I think Buffalo, I mean, in terms of our draft, has had a pretty damn good draft.
Yeah, I agree.
So at 29, we have Edmonton, and they're taking Nathan Gaucher. I've heard this guy is just considered a big bastard, and I think he screams Edmonton pick. He's a 6'3" center who likes to impose his will on games through his size and physicality. I'd consider him a safe pick. Probably tops out at a third liner in the NHL. He is well below point per game in the queue this year, and during your draft year, that's not necessarily where you want to be at. But he does show flashes of brilliance when he does turn it on. But I think just finding the consistency to do that more often, I think with a little pro direction from Edmonton and their scouting staff and their player development, they'll be able to pinpoint some of the stuff that he needs to improve on. But I think he needs to maybe impose his physicality a little less and focus a little more on offensive production.
Yeah, it's totally fair. At 30, I have the Winnipeg Jets taking another player. And keeping with the theme of big players, I have them taking left-handed defenseman Owen Pickering. And Pickering didn't have a huge offensive outburst this season, and I honestly think that's totally fine. He played in the WHL. WHL typically, I think, is a lower scoring league out of the three Canadian Hockey League leagues. And so for me, Owen Pickering has offensive upside. He's a guy who has really honestly nifty mitts for a huge defenseman. Like he's 6'5". He is a big guy. He can move really well for his size. Offensive upside, good transition skills. I just think he's a bit raw. So the Jets will need to be patient with his development. But I honestly think that he fits the mold of what the Jets are looking for. They like size on the back end. Owen Pickering gives them that. That's who I'm putting on the Winnipeg Jets draft board at number what is it, 29, 30, 30. I know where I swear. Raybros Raybro said that you picked Gaucher for Edmonton, being that he's an Edmonton fan. You've ruined his
Ugh.
night.
I like. I just. I know Edmonton. Like they could have had Wallstedt, but then they went with Xavier Burgot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not a bad
just
player, but they
no. He's not a bad player, but you
next
had the
player.
opportunity to get an elite goalie that fills a serious need.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But what do you know?
yeah, exactly. Whereas with Tampa Bay at 31, they're taking Yuri Coolidge.
Ooh.
This feels like a lightning pick. Such a boomer bust type guy. After his MVP of performance at the U18s with 9 goals and 11 points, which also doesn't seem that impressive comparing it to some of the guys on the US team who had 15 or 11 or 12 or whatever. But he is a bit of a Swiss Army type player. You can play him at center, you can play him on the wing, and he'll succeed. He's a good skater, he's a good passer, and a great puck handler who can finish. Tampa looks to get the highest value out of their players, and he seems like a guy that they would target if he's available.
Cool. Yeah. No, I like that pick for Tampa. And honestly, like Coolidge, I know has also been one of those guys who's been a late riser up the draft boards. But yeah, that'd be a good pick for Tampa, who seem to always net those good players who kind of just fall down draft boards at the end of the first round and early second round. So another good pickup for them. So actually, you don't know who I ended up picking at 32 for the Coyotes. We didn't talk about
I
this.
have no idea.
So because I was going to pick Rutger McGroarty, and Matt took him with Arizona's earlier pick, I went with a personal favorite of mine who I would love for the Sens to take in the second round if he's there. And so if Arizona doesn't trade up from 32 and stay put, I see them drafting a player like center David Goyette from the Sudbury Wolves. So
Ooh.
what's interesting about Goyette is that he led all OHL rookies in points, managing to put up 33 goals and 40 assists on a Sudbury Wolves team that really was not good this season.
Mm.
And to put that in perspective, okay, so he had 73 points. The second leading goal scorer on the Wolves put up 50 points. Now, there were two drafted players who were traded mid-season who probably would have competed with Goyette for that top scoring spot. Both of them, it was Stillman, who I think it's Stillman, who was drafted by the New Jersey Devils last year, and there was another, I believe, a defenseman that's a Tampa Bay pick, and he was also traded. But even if they had stayed on the roster, Goyette would have beat both of them in scoring. So I really like Goyette there. Sometimes he can float around the defensive zone a little bit and seems like he's kind of waiting for his teammates to get control of the pucks that they can pass it to him and he can break it out for an odd man rush or a breakaway or what have you. But to me, like that's something that obviously you have to develop and coach out of him. Make sure like, hey, listen, like you do have to help out a little more in the defensive zone. You can't just wait at the point to get a pass from your defenseman and then go from there. But I also think that a lot of their offense channeled through Goyette, and so I think he kind of needed to play that cherry pick at the blue line type of role to help his team get some points. He had a 4 goal game this year. One of them was an empty netter at the end, but still, and he also had a natural hat trick against the North Bay Battalion this year. So and when I watched those games, it seems like he's the kind of guy who's able to sneak into the slot or back door and kind of evade detection by defenses and then just get in tight and get those goals. So I really like that. And I think if you put him with somebody who's a great playmaker at the next level, he could be a great third or potentially second line player if he can really take that next level. But yeah, to me, I think he's got some flashy stick handling that he can do to get around defenders. And if he falls in the second round, I'd love for the Sens to take him because I'm a Goyette truther, as they say. Um, and yeah, Ray bro, yeah, he's just inconsistent. And like you said, like either looks like a top 6 forward or he's not anywhere to be found. So to me, really like I really like his upside. And so if he's there in the second round, I'd love for the Sens to take him. But in this mock draft, he's going 32 to the Arizona Coyotes. So that fills out our mock draft for the first round. Um, I don't know. I like surprises. Anybody that you looking at, you're just like, man, like this team won out for sure, or this guy, like you don't really see them as being someone who should be in the company of the rest of these names.
Honestly, like I think we did a pretty good job. I think like
So yourself, eh? Non-biased at all.
I think I think Delbel Blues won't be a first rounder.
That's okay. The Sens will take him in the second round.
Yeah, like I think that's very well possible. I mean, if I think Lane Hudson is another guy who might just be a victim of circumstance, a uh, being a smaller guy. I think he has the potential to be an excellent defenseman. He like reminds me of Eric Brandstrom a little bit in terms of just the profile, being undersized but utilizing his puck handling ability and his skate work to get out of crappy situations. But he's even smaller than Brandstrom, so it's he might be a guy who falls out. And Nathan Gaucher is another guy who I don't really think deserves to be in this grouping. I didn't exactly put him there out of spite, but I did pick these from a feel of, okay, I'm drafting as the Edmonton Oilers, and what is typically their niche. And I mean, like with Ottawa's pick, I could have went Marco Casper or Kemmel.
I'll talk about Casper right now at number 7.
Yeah, but at the same time, with all the reported interest in Alex DeBrincat, maybe they are looking for guys that, they're trying to get out of their own mold that they forced themselves into, and try and do something new. Yeah. And the old guard is still there in Edmonton. So until that's sort of gone, I think they're going to be a victim of their own fate with Ken Holland. Yeah. No, I think that guy should have been gone years ago. Ray Bro, I don't know if you've been listening to the Senstennial.
No, I'm sure Ray Bro agrees. Ken Holland is not the GM I would want him. And our team has Pierre Dorion.
I would if I was Edmonton, I would much rather have Pierre Dorion.
Brent Popson says, solid mock draft, boys. Can't wait for tomorrow when we do rounds 2 through 7. Don't do that to me, please. Please don't. I think I would cry.
I'll say this. I think Ottawa, with their second round pick, will probably take a defenseman.
Yeah, I could see that. I actually wanted to comment on Philadelphia because I personally think that Ottawa and Philadelphia's picks could be swapped. I personally think that if Philadelphia is interested in a guy like DeBrincat, because there's been rumors that the Flyers have been interested, talking to Chicago about DeBrincat.
Yeah.
If they're okay with a smaller forward who has that high dynamic offensive skill, then they might look at Savoy when it comes to the draft and be like, hey, like, we don't have to give up an arm, a leg, a lung to get DeBrincat. And I'm not saying that Savoy has that same ceiling, but he has kind of that mold of like a high octane, dynamic, flashy, offensive stud who's just short. And so I think that he could potentially fit Philadelphia's mold. And for for Cutter Gauthier to the Sens, I think that's just a no-brainer. The Sens absolutely would love a player like him. I think Gauthier is like what the Sens wish they got in Tyler Boucher last year.
Yeah.
My opinion. Obviously it's my opinion. But anyway, I just think Gauthier, if there's one set of picks that I think will actually be flipped, I think it could be the Gauthier Savoy one. I think that Philly could take Savoy, Ottawa could take Gauthier.
I think that's absolutely fair. I think we're just gonna have to wait until Friday to find out.
Actually, first round is Thursday.
It's third. Oh yes, you're right. It's Thursday.
So I'll be
So
I'll be Pierre Maguiring it, boots on the ground. I'm gonna be at the draft, 300 level. Hell yeah, get the binoculars out. Uh, no, but it should be a good time. I'll look forward to seeing Montreal draft Shane Wright first overall because if they don't, the arena will erupt in panic. I think so.
I think it would be hilarious if that happens. I just I look at Shane Wright and he profiles as what you need when you're drafting first overall. And his year wasn't even that bad. Like he started off slow. Imagine if he didn't.
Forget like there wasn't an OHL season last year. Like
Yeah, exactly.
he played one less OHL season than other like I mean I know all the junior guys are like that, but when I look at the mock drafts, there are a lot of CHL players who aren't ranked as high this year. Like
Yeah.
obviously Matthew Savoy is. I'm just looking at our draft picks. Connor Geeky is fairly like high, but there's just not a lot of CHL players, and I honestly think it's just because their development was set back by missing a year due to COVID. And so when you have like I think what we have three, do we have like four CHL players in our top 32? I think five,
Yeah. Shane Wright,
something like that. Oh,
Savoy.
I guess Matichuk and Matichuk, so like seven. Anyway,
Yeah.
we usually there's a lot more CHL players. Is my point. We don't
Yeah.
have a ton in
Yeah.
our top 32. So to me, like that just shows that I think the pandemic year really had an effect on the CHL, and we're seeing that in this draft. But I think what's nice for the Sens is that to me it is very hard to reach in this draft, unlike last year. I think
Yeah.
that this year there is some definite talent between like that 5, 6 spot all the way through to like 20 where there's just a lot of interchangeable players, and I think that will really benefit the Sens if they hang on to the pick, or I don't think it'll hurt them if they decide to trade that pick to another team for an impact top six forward. So
Yeah, which I think is very much uh, like realistic. With that said, you hit the nail on the head that I don't really think there's a lot of people that are going to be reaches. I like even if we took Connor Geeky, it's not Tyler Boucher.
no, definitely. I mean, I still wouldn't be a huge fan, but it's not like out of the realm of possibility for a team to take Connor Geeky in the top 10 potentially,
Yeah.
I could see Detroit honestly taking a guy like Geeky. Um, it wouldn't surprise me, or even
Yep.
Buffalo. Like it really wouldn't,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't surprise me to see Anaheim take a guy like Kemmel or Lekaramaki. It's
Yep.
really up in the air, so that's why
Yep.
these mock drafts are fun because you never know what'll actually happen. But
You never know.
but anyway, all right. Well, I think that wraps it up for us. So thank you everybody who tuned in. We really appreciate it. If you're on YouTube, then hopefully you'll subscribe to us. We'll be posting more content in the upcoming weeks, and we have a couple guest episodes lined up. After the draft, actually, I think a week from today, we actually have not one, but two NHL draft analysts joining us for a live stream. So next week, around this time, another live stream. It'll be post draft. We'll break down how the Sens drafted, all that stuff. It'll be a lot of fun. So please come tune in for that. Yeah. So if you liked the stream and you want to drop us a like and subscribe, we really appreciate it. We're also on Spotify, all that stuff. You can find our links in our bio, and we're on Twitter at Senstennial. That's where we're most active. So thank you for everybody to tune in. Thank you, Raybro, Time, and Brent for your comments. Really appreciate all you guys tuning in and staying active in chat. And have a great night, everybody. We'll see you at the draft. And go Sens go.
Go Sens go.